It's a surprise to you, but a lot of this class is going to be trash talk. All right, there's going to be a good bit of trash talk between Spain and Italy. We can even argue that trash talk is the point. So before fencers had an internet, they had to argue with each other over this new technology called paper, and they would put it in books. People that read Pacheco tend to think that he's really polemic, that he really is adversarial. And I think that may be a disservice to him because just like George Silver throws in little jokes and amusing stories, Pacheco is coming from a literary tradition of kind of biting, sarcastic wit. And so when I read Pacheco, I generally just laugh out loud at some of the outrageous names that he calls other people, but it's not always clear his tone. So it's just like the internet, right? Sometimes you read something and you laugh, and sometimes it just makes you jump into a flood.
So this was before smileys?
Yeah, this is before the invention of smileys.
Pacheco might have, been against smileys anyway.
All right.
He would have had frownies.
As somebody who studied classical Italian fencing, I'm going to start the first salvo into the trash talk here with, and this is Quevedo. He's a Spanish fencer and notorious scoundrel and author. And he wrote a satire of Destreza in one of his books. He says, "Don't mock," he told me, "for I am learning the clearing against the sword, making the large tajo cuts that encircle the asperados of the sword." And his friend says, "I don't understand anything you said, small or large." Well, this book says, he answered me, which is called The Greatness of the Sword, and it is very good and tells miracles. And so you will believe it in Rejas, where we will sleep tonight with 2 chicken spits. You will see me do wonders. And you will not doubt that whoever reads this book will kill everyone he pleases. And they go on to say things like, and he will die, and there just won't be enough time for the confession. So I think that's part of the joke, right? The Spanish have a reputation for using a lot of jargon. We're going to look at a little bit of that. But really, the piece of irony here is that somebody who reads the book isn't necessarily training, right? And we all know that the trained fencer is the one who's probably going to succeed. Training. The system is great, but it's nothing without the training. All right. Do you have an intro of your own subject? This is our first piece of Spanish trash talk, and this is Pacheco talking about large things.
What we're working out of mostly is Pacheco's New Science. So mostly trash talk is Pacheco's New Science. Some of the techniques also have some feedback from a later author named Gonzalo. But Pacheco, in his letter to the reader at the beginning of New Science, here goes the opening salvo. We find 8 authors, and some of you have heard this before, we find 8 authors to be the first fruits of this sect, deformed and horrendous monster that men have venerated. The 5 Italians, who were Pedro Moncio, Achille Marozzo, Camillo Agrippa, Giacomo de Grassi, Juanes de la Goche, from Mallorca was Jaime Ponce Perpignan, and Spaniards Francisco Roman and Pedro de la Torre. They followed these in everything, although contradicting them in part. Another great swarm of authors whose writings superfluously wander through the world, like tournaments of their vanity. They were Joaquin Meyer, Lieutenant Falopia, Angelo Pisani, Federico Gisliero, Marcio Dociolini, Nicoletta Giganti, Salvador de Fabris, Capoferro, Maestre Clausio, Maestre Vico, Babote, and others of lesser importance. These of greater importance, if only their insatiable ambition would permit it to be said thus.
All right. So now that everybody's blood is up, we're going to talk a little bit about some Spanish basics, just enough to get you through the class. I'm going to try to avoid as much jargon as possible, but you're going to need this to understand how the Spanish count time and how they set their defense. So first thing that we need to do is we need to cover a little bit of blade theory. A blade is a ramp that is going to direct force, and it's up to you to choose which way that force is going to go. Let me borrow Eric here. So I'm going to give you what I would call a competitive sport fencing foil theory. Go ahead and give me just some, give me a thrust. All right, so from here, I've got my strong against my weak. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Is there a problem here with the ramp of my force? if Eric just pushes into my blade, he's changed that relationship almost instantly, and he can do what we call a forced glide. All right. So the ramp I've created to direct this lateral force is bad for me. If I take the same blade, no magic here, strong against weak, and I just turn my point into the adversary's weapon, and he pushes, he'll never get there. Right? Can we think of an Italian master that might say this? Maybe Faber's, the blade is always strongest on the side to which it points. That's what we're looking at right there. And it's going to apply, it applies to any weapon. So the other thing that we're going to look at is when to relax, when to release force. So we're going to struggle over contention of the line here, and he's going to give me a good push. Right? At this point, I could try to regain the line, but it's going to be better for me to just relax. And now the ramp is going to slide off the tip, and I can step through and do something else. That makes sense? So we have to intelligently use this surface to either see the adversary's weapon away or to protect ourselves in the line. That makes sense? That's going to be absolutely critical to some of the things we do, because if you try to oppose an Italian who's lunging and you don't close the line well, you're just going to eat it, and you're going to step into it and eat it even harder. All right, now I need everybody to stand up. We're going to look at this stuff. Get some space between you because we're about to look at the stance. All right, I want everybody to pretend that I am your adversary. Point your lead toe towards me, whatever your dominant hand is. Feet together. You recognize this as the first position from the Italian classes earlier. All right, just take a step out 6 inches. I want you to relax your knees. Your body's still going to be upright in profile. Then just, what Carranza says is that when you're going to put your hand on guard, extend it as if it were naturally. You just extend it naturally. So that's going to be what the Italians will call free, what the Spanish will call fingernails in. So you're just going to have your blade extended straight. And relax. I don't want to keep you up there too long because that's a tiring position. Alright, so the next thing that we need to know is we need to know how the Spanish count motion. And Aristotle tells us that movement is, time is the numeration of movement. Right? So there's an equation there. Movement equals time. We can count movements to count time. How are we going to do this? We'll count blades. When a blade rises, that's going to be a movement. When a blade falls, that's going to be a movement. When a blade goes forward, this is a movement. When a blade goes back, that's a movement. We also have movements that are lateral. Okay? Let me borrow a victim here. Terry, go ahead and put your weapon down by your side. That's fine. You can put it behind your back. All right. Tell me when my point becomes significant to you. Now? Why is that? It's pointed at your face. Is it less significant now? All right. So what we have there is that even though I was executing a lateral motion, right, there is a significant aspect to that, and that is whether it is traveling towards the line of offense or away from it. Right? So we're going to talk about an offline lateral and an aligning lateral, and that gives us different possibilities. All right? Thanks. Any questions about that?
No.
I'll give you one free question. If I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, is there anything in between? Yes. Sure, there's a whole world out there. So when we mix two movements, we'll call it a mixed movement. This is mixed rising and offline lateral. Right, maybe I want to deliver a cut. Here's a mixed rising, offline lateral. That's one movement. Here is a mixed natural. Here's a mixed falling movement and aligning lateral to deliver the cut. How many movements do we have? We have two mixed. How many tempos is that? Two. If Ken was to anticipate that I'm getting ready to throw this cut, and he moves during my first movement with a forward movement, right? What he's done is he's